Okay, Kate, you can begin.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. We will begin the work session December 13th, 2021, Forest Grove School Board at 5:30 sharp. And today I believe we're going to do staff workload and substitutes. And Dave, you will start us off, correct?
Correct. I'm going to share my screen here, get organized, and then we'll get going here. Wrong thing. So tonight, what we wanted to bring to you is some more information about kind of teacher workload, stress, and kind of what we're currently doing and what we're working on with our unions. The first thing I want to do is kind of present to you some of the data. About a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, FGEA surveyed its members and got back some information about how folks are feeling and what they're suggesting would be helpful in this situation. I sent you this whole thing, so you have all of the data, all of the slides. I'm not going to hit all of them, but I want to go through and kind of just talk through what our teaching cadre is telling us right now. And then I'm going to have John talk a little bit about what adjustments principals have already made and are looking at. And then Kevin's going to talk a little bit about this issue around subs and coverage and some of the staffing issues we're having. Lastly, we're going to have Kim talk a little bit about mental health and wellness, some of the things that we're working on in the district. And then the last thing we'll do is just come back and see what kind of questions you have or suggestions of where we might go. So that's kind of what we're up to today. I'll start with, they pushed out this, we have about 330, somewhere 330 to 340 total licensed members. And so they had 296 FGEA participants in this. You can kind of see it's split in a way that I would expect. It feels like about the right mix of folks. The next thing is they kind of asked them, how do you rate your current workload? And what I want to just point out here is there's about 19% of the folks said that it was extreme. I'm not able to get my work done in my contract time. About 59% rated it high. I'm not able to get my work done in the contract day. And then 19% said I typically have enough time in the contract day to do my work. A very small amount. There was nobody who said low, and moderate was a small. So again, our folks are definitely working hard this year. How would you rate your current work-related stress level? And again, I want to come out here. It's about 17% are saying severe. The stress level is impacting my physical or mental health. About 29-30% are saying I feel stressed and overwhelmed on a daily basis. And then you've got this 31 and 20 that are into the considerable and moderate. For staff who are educators before the pandemic, how does your workload compare to a typical day pre-COVID? And again, this is kind of what they responded with. About 15% said it seems kind of similar. We didn't break this out by, or we didn't get it from them broken out by level, but I'm curious how that looks elementary level to secondary. About 52% of the folks are saying it's more than a typical year, which I would expect. There's a lot going on. And then there's about 33% of the folks are saying that this is far more than a typical year. And then, and again, I sent you all of the slides. There's a couple of other slides in there, but I thought that kind of got to our folks are under stress. And then they started to say, what's causing the stress? And then they're going to say, what are ideas you have for lowering that stress? So these are the highest rated things that came out of their survey. If you previously stated that your stress level was high, which of the following significantly adds? And they put together, they didn't want to chase down a lot of open-ended answers here. So they had suggestions and people chose these, and they could choose multiple selections. The first was additional student needs resulting from the pandemic. 81% of the folks said that is challenging right now. And that I mean, that resonates with me because again, our kids were in CDL for a long period and then in hybrid. So absolutely our kids are coming with a much wider set of needs. Not feeling like I can take a sick day or a personal day. This is related to something that will come up later, which is around subs and coverage and our staffing shortage. Lack of time to plan and prep. 73% of our folks were denoting that as a stressful piece. We have the next round of things. I mean, the last ones were 80%, almost 80%, 70%. So our next round of things, student behavior as being stressful this year, COVID safety, and then additional work requirements. Again, I think more than half or a little bit more than half are just saying what we're doing to manage COVID creates stress in their job. And then we've got covering classes due to sub shortage. Now, again, the second most stressful thing was this worry about taking a sub day because we don't have the coverage. I think this is related. Now, having to also cover those classes is also a problem. Lack of school-wide systems and organization. I'm still working with the union on what they meant by this. I'm not quite sure. I'm looking through some of the detailed answers and trying to pull out here, but I think some of this has to do with student behavior and our responses to it, but still working on exactly what that meant. And then we've got personal protective equipment, which for me, again, I think fits back up into COVID and our responses to it. So those were the things. There's kind of this, there were other responses that didn't have significant amounts, but they shortage of IAs or staff, lack of curriculum materials at the elementary level. The lack of curriculum means they're creating all of their content year in and year out, and that's a problem, especially now. SLGGs, data teams, and PLCs focus, which is what our expectations are for those meetings. And then no parent volunteers to help, especially at the elementary level. Not having parents there to do some of the other jobs means the teachers have to take them on. We can talk more about that coming up here. And then the last thing that they talked about were just some common, what would our licensed colleagues, what would they say would be helpful? And so one of the things, more teacher-directed prep days, prep time, return to asynchronous work days. The second one is solve the sub problems so teachers can take their sick days and or are not covering for them. Brad.
What does that mean, Dave? Return to asynchronous work days.
I think these are the same suggestions that came up with Portland Public, and we kind of, when we brought to you the calendar change earlier, it's a similar idea of trying to take student contact days and turn them into some sort of teacher used day, whether you call it a prep or whether there's something there. That's what they're looking at. And really, for me, they're talking about time here, because we've spent some time talking about this issue around, are we going to give up student contact days? And I'm not going to bring another calendar that's going to get rid of student contact days to the board. That just isn't how we need to solve that. But I think what they're saying here with this is basically time. How do we get them some more time to do that work?
So the more teacher direct prep days is more open prep days without any district involvement. Is that what that means?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely saw that in some of the comments from folks, which is, and they appreciated, we changed up the last grading day to provide some more flexibility. And I think it was secondary had like a half day of PD and then a half day of grading. And so allowing them some more flexibility. They worked in they did some PLC work, and then they were doing their own, that was good. We heard back from them that they appreciated that. Behavior and at-risk student supports. Again, we are seeing increases in behavior, specifically at the secondary schools. And so beginning to work on those behaviors, having systems dealing with some of the consequences of those behaviors. Another set of things that they would suggest for workload relief: fill vacant IA and certified positions, reduce requirements for SLGGs and talent ed, pay Synergy to talk to Canvas. One of the problems is Synergy and Canvas, there is some software that allows the two systems to talk, but it's not going well. Two other districts that are doing it are really struggling. It doesn't work very well. Yes, Brad.
So are we, I mean, I guess the question I have right now is, are we trying to fill IA and certified positions?
Yeah.
We're
And
doing the best we can right now, or?
more than the best we can. They're interviewing almost every other day, every day, especially in different parts. And I don't want to steal my thunder from the folks who are going to follow here, because they're going to talk more about kind of these situations and what we're doing about it. So I'm going to let that one sit for a second, and then we'll answer it as we move along.
And then the talking between Synergy and Canvas, is that something we're trying to solve, or is it? Go ahead.
So great question. It's a piece of software that allows the two systems to trade information. The issue here is that it is not going well. As a matter of fact, they've abandoned it in another district near us. So we need to talk some more about that. But again, that's what the teachers are looking for, is they're having to do some double entry in some places, and that doesn't feel good. I totally understand why.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So now I'm going to turn it over to John to do kind of what we were just doing there, is tell you a little bit about what we are working on. You've kind of seen what the teachers were, what's stressing them out and what they like. And now we'll talk a little bit about what we are often doing. We're going to start with John.
Thank you, Dave. So under professional responsibilities, we've talked a little bit about this at previous board meetings, but we've intentionally greatly reduced traditional PD trainings during pre-service and during the year. We have some mandatory trainings that we need to do, and keeping it bare bones. Really prioritizing extended collaborative planning time instead of PD time on Wednesday sit days. Reduce the focus on data during sit PLC time to focus more on grade level course alike collaboration time. What are we doing for tomorrow? What are we doing for the rest of this week? What materials are we looking at? And I found it very interesting in the FGEA survey. The message I got loud and clear is we need a curriculum, and I'm confident they're talking about a language arts curriculum, K6. But then they also, the curriculum adoption is, an issue, but we've got to, do it. And again, it's a small number of responses, but it just shows the dichotomy of, pressure teachers are feeling. So again, just focusing on teacher collaboration time during PLC instead of the every other week professional development delivered by a school site. We incorporated the mandatory activities into sit time. It includes the mandatory HR training time, report card, preparation time, time for parent conferences, time for SLGGs with the course alike or grade level alike in a building, working collaboratively, working from home on grading days. Many cases of grading PD days, transitioning to grading planning time.
Hey, John.
Yes, sir.
Can I ask you, can you talk
Please.
a little bit about the SLGGs, the student learning growth goals, maybe? Is that what that is?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about, that's come up a couple of times, and so maybe you can just talk about that.
Yeah. Kevin, is that part of your presentation, or do you want me to touch on it? I don't want to step on your toes.
No, go ahead. You can, and I can jump in if you have anything else, but no, go ahead.
Okay. So very intentionally, SLGGs are still required by the state, having teachers identify them. So work as collaboratively as possible. We thank you for the board for our TOSAs, our lit coaches, our ELD coaches, our math coaches that also support science and health. What they're doing is sitting in on PLCs and doing a lot of the legwork in terms of data collection, as well as creating sample SLGGs that they might want to consider it, and keeping it as simple as possible. In reading or in math, and they tell us what they're working on. And that's hard, Mark, because there's teachers that are perfectionists and they spend a great deal of time on tiered goals. And we understand that, but that is not our expectation.
Right. So this is part of the evaluation process.
Yes,
right?
sir.
And teachers have to identify these, and the state requires it. That's what you're saying. So
Kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. You have to do that, but I would not encourage us to spend a lot of time on that.
Right.
I wouldn't, because and teachers as well. I wouldn't.
Right.
Yep. Mark, we're checking a box.
Yeah. Okay.
It's more than that, though. I mean, I think, again, we've done exactly that, Mark, which is we tried to, but one of the issues that we do have is that our kids are behind.
Yeah, I know.
For us to be able to measure some of this growth, that's why we tried to do these in groups. Like what we're trying to do is basically just figure out where is the entry level and where are they going to get to. But we tried to take a lot of the stress out of it. Now, in what John was kind of talking through was, in some places we have really high achiever teachers, and so they're still putting a lot into this. And that's not, I mean, we've tried really hard to make this more of a less stressful and more about, as a group, this grade level, what are we headed towards? Okay. What I said about the kind of, in the evaluation system, the SLGGs are not, with this year, are not demanded by the state for this. So we've tried to be very round about this. The other thing that we're looking at, that I know Kevin will get in, we are looking at what are we going to expect for evaluations this year, and some changes have come from the state. So I can tell you right now, we're lessening that. I'll let Kevin talk more about that, but we've got some new expectations on that too. Sorry, John.
No, that's perfect. And Mark, that's exactly the conversations we're having. Give me a sentence fragment. Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Brad?
Hey, John, we're still moving forward with the adoption, though. There are no changes in that.
Yes, no, we are. And I just want to give a huge shout out. And Kate, I know you feel the same way, the teachers, because with subs being such a challenge, coming in at the end of a workday, they're dragging, but they're committed, and they recognize the need, and they're giving it their all. But Elena's done a really good job, like she said. We had a adoption time set up for this Thursday, and today in CNI we said monitor and adjust, right? Like good teachers, cancel it. We'll give them, push out some reading, but we're not going to have that expectations. Instead, we'll monitor and adjust, and be intentional in the 2 meetings that we do have already identified in January. But Brad, we are definitely moving forward with that. And we want to get out, and especially with the supply chain issues, have the materials that teachers need. Like you saw in the FGEA poll, they need curriculum, they need materials. And what they're talking about is language arts.
That's specifically that's what they were talking about.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
So those are some of the professional responsibilities. Dave, is there another slide for me, or is that it?
Nope, you have another one here. Hang on. Sorry, hang on.
Oh, you're good. So, so here's some examples of buildings trying to take some things off of teachers' plates. And what was really powerful, and I'd like to thank our co-presidents of FGEA. I sent them an email when I heard that it came out, the survey, and we set up, we had an elementary principal meeting already calendared later on that day, but they gave us access to it, and we sat down and reviewed this in its entirety and shared it with principals with their permission, just so that we can be responsive to the suggestions and have that principal collaboration time on how we're going to reduce. So here's some examples. Dave sent it out, or Kathy did, on Friday with an in-depth, school by school site. But Harvey Clark, no staff members, newsletter communication instead. All of them are trying to do that. Cornelius, reviewing how PLCs and data teams are operating to reduce stress levels, to share the collaborative workload, collaborative planning. Fern Hill, roving subs for grade level teachers, a couple hours at a time to have more time to plan together. Also being more flexible with sit Wednesdays. And then staff being allowed to work from home. And there's some new laws out there, like I mentioned earlier, the suicide prevention, how we're supporting kids during probably the most traumatic time that I've seen in 33 years of my career. We have to do that. We've got to be identifying those signals and how do we respond and what resources are available today for our kids. So we minimize those trains to just that and nothing more. And that's to preserve bandwidth. Next slide, Dave. Oh, I'm sorry. That's it. So I have some more highlights, but I know you all received it. Each school put together at least 7 bullet points. Some are like 15, how they're doing that. And they're working collaboratively with their staff. We held a emergency secondary principals meeting, Juliana, Karen, and I, to review the FGEA survey results, and shared with them this printout to just generate ideas so that we can put this all on this common document and reference it. And then once we did receive that, we pushed it back out to the co-presidents and said, hey, this is what we came up with. And then keep that dialogue coming with us. What can we do to help reduce teacher workload and preserve their bandwidth? Any questions on that part? Okay, thank you guys.
I think a couple of things still coming on this one, which is we are still talking with the unions around the upcoming grading and grading/PD days. We'll again be flexible in as we move forward with that. Still working around how many CITs are going to the union versus moving forward and the rest. What else do we have working there, John, on that parts?
Oh, absolutely. Well, just multiple.
I'm really just kind of looking for the ones we're still negotiating with the union around. And Kevin, I don't know. I'll just turn it over to Kevin and then we'll come back to it if we need to. But we're still working around other ideas there of how to provide more space for folks.
Yeah, the dialogue's ongoing, right, Dave?
Yep. Next, Kevin's going to talk us through kind of what's going on with coverage, subs, and the rest. So I'm going to turn it over to Kevin.
All right, good evening, everybody. So we've got a couple of slides here for some data for you, and then we've got a slide and some information about kind of steps and actions that we're taking. So when you look at, or you may be curious about wanting to know, well, where are we at? Where are we at with substitutes? There are kind of 2 components. So you're going to see this first slide here talking about fill rates, right? So that is how many absences do we have reported? And were we able to fill that absence, or did it go unfilled, right? And our buildings are working real hard to try to mitigate this. So one thing, so these are just fill rates here, right? And a couple things you're going to see and notice right away is that one, we're making progress on the licensed fill rate. We've started off the beginning of the year at a 72%. And then be able to move up and increase that up to about 87. And then we'll talk a little bit shortly about why we think that's happening and what's going on there. I think the other area to look at, obviously, we broke out our classified into our general classified and then to our special education, which makes up the majority of our classified instructional assistants. And, you know, these are low fill rates. And what that means is that when a classified is sick or out or absent, we're not able to always find a substitute there. And again, lots of reasons behind that. Yeah, Brad.
Do we have classified that have gone into the licensed area that have created a situation where we don't have the IA, but we have the license filled?
Yeah, and I'm going to get to that. That's a good segue into the couple slides coming up, exactly
Okay.
what we've done. And you'll see, and that's exactly, and you kind of see that with the fact that some of our classified fill rates, I would say the general classified, you know, the one thing, and I tried to put the numbers in there, the first number is how many absences we filled. And you can see that number increases each month, right? So we filled 71 in September, 97. I'm looking just at the classified general, that third line there, and then filled 117 absences, or right in November. Now on the special education, and we'll talk about that, Brad, that's a good segue. So hold that when we get to the next couple slides, is that we are starting to use one of our strategies. It was to get some of our classifieds emergency substitute licenses. They're familiar with the students, they're familiar with the school, and sometimes, you know, they're able to really come in and do a great job. So that's one reason why I think the fill rates in the classified, but not all, but that's partly why, right? So can we go to first of all, any questions on the fill rate on this slide here? Okay, let's go to the other. So the other slide, and I've got a couple of slides here, is that, so the other part of the covering of vacancies or of absences are, and this is at the secondary level primarily, is the prep coverage, right? So when somebody gives up their prep, so if you teach 3 of 4 at the high school, so you have 1 prep, and let's say you have someone sick, right? And we weren't able to find a full-time licensed sub. Well, we can divide that up over 4 different people or 3 different people and cover that person's class or classes that day. So what you're seeing here, and these are by pay periods. So the first pay period we have here, the first column is how many total teachers at high school, at NAMS, and then the elementary. And the elementary is a little bit different because it just deals with our specialist music and PE. So let's focus on the secondary, right? The high school and the middle school. So we had 38 staff members in the high school in that period of time between September and October 10th that covered a prep period. And then the rest of the columns there show how many preps they covered during that time period, right? So we had 20, for instance, that first line, 20 teachers covered 1 prep period in that first segment of time, right? And then 9 covered 2, 3. You can read the rest of that. We've got a couple of folks, right? You see there's like, you know, covered 4 prep periods within that time period. So that's 4 different days that they taught nonstop that day, right? They didn't get a prep because they taught during their prep. So this is just another avenue of how we're covering some of our absences, right? We do it that way at the secondary. Okay, and then this is the same data, but for the next pay period, so October 11th through November 10th. And, you know, pretty consistent there. I'd say there's a little bit more folks at the high school level that were covering multiple prep periods, right? So we had, you know, 8 people covering 2, 10, and then you get into the 5+ prep periods. And those people are really, really working hard. They are giving up their preps on several days to help kind of cover the needs when we can't find maybe a sub. Yeah, Brad.
So 3 out of how many teachers at a high school calc level?
Yeah, high school, we've
Roughly.
got about 70.
So 70. So there are 3 teachers that are covering 5 preps out of 70.
Right.
Okay. And then covering 1, there are 19 teachers out of 70. Okay.
Yep. Exactly.
Same thing with the middle school, right?
Yep. Middle school is a little higher, but they've got about 40. Little over 40 teachers. So yeah, they've got a lot of people stepping up at the middle school percentage-wise, or at least, right? So,
Right. Okay.
The difference in schedule there, when we cover a single teacher's day, we have to cover 6 periods. So there's more opportunities, lower amount of time. So that's part of it too.
Right. I get it. But
then, yep, go ahead. And then let's go to the next couple slides. So here, just to give you some idea about what we are doing as a district, okay? So the first bullet there is that we are moving and we are hiring building-based subs. We did this last year and had some good success over this. So this is, they hire Kevin Noreen, and Kevin Noreen is the substitute solely for that building, right? So that they're always going to have Kevin there to use and cover for one absence that isn't able to get covered by our outside substitutes. So that's one strategy we're doing. The other strategy, and Brad alluded to this already, which is the TSPC went ahead and passed an emergency rule, and this allowed us to actually hire and get classified staff, and actually anybody, and we'll get to that in the next bullet. You did not have to have a 4-year degree. Previous to the COVID pandemic, in order for us to hire you as what they would call a restricted substitute, you had to at least have a 4-year degree. That no longer is the case. And again, you know, for a lot of our classified folks, many of them are starting to look at becoming teachers. Some of them are even in programs, and they may not have a 4-year degree. So this really opened the door. And I would say that in talking with our principals, especially at the elementary levels, this has really been a savings. This has really helped out. Now, again, you can say, well, wait a minute, you're pulling a classified then, and you're hurting your fill rates at the classified level, right? And of course, and we are going to prioritize a classroom teacher, because without a classroom teacher, we can't run that class, right? We can't bring those kids in. We've got to have somebody licensed in there to run the class. The third one, I meet with any members of the community that have expressed an interest or come in and send us an email that says, hey, I've always wanted to be a substitute teacher. So I interview those people, and if there's somebody that, you know, we feel could do a great job, then we'll obviously work with getting them some training. And so we've sponsored a few of those folks. We're obviously trying to get the word out. Hopefully you've seen it. We've put it on Facebook. We're using our social media. We've asked the schools to get it out into the newsletters. I would say right now too, the area that we're continuing to target are our parents, because, you know, we work with the ESD, who is our substitute kind of provider and coordinator. The vaccine mandate took a lot of folks out. A lot of folks just decided, I'm not going to substitute anymore. So that was one thing that, and then a lot of people are just still kind of not sure, right? So we've lost, the sub pool is not what it is for us any longer. Can we go to the next slide, Dave, please? So another strategy, and this actually came from one of our internal administrators, where they said, hey, you know what, we're going to start making sure that we contact those people that apply for jobs that don't get hired and say, hey, you know, have you ever considered being a substitute? We could really use you, right? So that's one easy way. Hopefully, if people are applying, they want to work for us. So another way to get a foot in the door, right, is to work for us as a substitute, and they can start showing their quality and what they can bring. And the next time we have an opening, then, you know, they can apply and could be a real successful candidate. Obviously, the ESD, I've talked to you about that. We're working really, I mean, when we get folks that want to be a classified sub, we are calling the ESD and saying, how can we expedite this? Because it does take a couple weeks to get people in to be a substitute. It just doesn't happen overnight. There's background checks, there's fingerprinting, all that kind of stuff. So we're really working hard with the ESD and also to recruit. So the one thing I'll circle back to, Brad, your question about, you know, how are we doing on filling positions, right? I mean, we still have vacant positions that we have been unable to fill since the beginning of the year, on top of the fact that we get resignations still It's not uncommon to see resignations at least one a week. So, you know, the Student Services Department, those folks, we have had a ongoing posting ever since school started, and we re-up it and renew it, and you know, again, try to get it back out there. So we are doing everything we can. I will say we also have been advertising for some of these building substitutes, and we currently don't even have an applicant in that pool right now. So, you know, we're open to other ideas and other suggestions. If there are things that you don't see on this list that you're kind of wondering, like, gosh, what about this? We're doing a COVID vaccine clinic at one of our buildings, and members of my team are going to go there and recruit and talk with parents and say, hey, have you ever thought about becoming a substitute? You know, if you've got your kids in school, could you come in and substitute for us as a classified? So we're going to continue to, we're not at all taking our foot off the gas on that. So I'd be happy to take any questions, Kate. Oh, I can't hear you, Kate.
Still muted.
There, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So do we now, did I understand that we now have like a hired sub for each building? Like
well, we're in the process of hiring them. Yes, we have them for multiple. We've got one at Neil Armstrong, we've got one at Tom McCall, and we've got one between Dilley and Fernhill. We're still recruiting and trying to get the other ones hired. Yeah.
Yeah, because we used to have that at the high school with Mary Fitzgibbons. She was just a, you know, it was great because she could fill in all over the building. Second is, what is happening in special ed? You know, some of these special ed students need an aid. So how are we supporting those kids that need an aid?
Yeah, that's a great segue as Kim comes up. I don't want to put her on the spot, but I
okay.
mean, we definitely are, the buildings are scrambling, Kate. I mean, I'm not gonna, you know, try to paint a different picture than the reality, right? I mean, we have, as John said, sometimes we're pulling our TOSAs, our coaches, principals are having to step in, and we're certainly trying to cover and get all those different aspects, right? And that is a constant practice in every building, I would say every day, because every day we have, you saw the numbers, we have unfilled. But Kate, I will tell you that I know that Student Services and Kim's team, as well as the principals, are on top of that, are doing everything they can to make sure that we're providing those services to those kids.
Last question. You're just not getting applicants. It's not the salary, it's the applicants. You're just not getting the applicants. I mean, that was what we did with the bus department, is raise the rate so that we would get more individuals. But it seems like in this case, it's just, we're not even getting applicants.
Yeah, I mean, it's, go ahead, Kim, please.
For special ed classified, we are getting applicants. It's just that every time we hire an applicant, somebody else takes a leave or quits. So what we're doing for special ed students is we're really prioritizing our really complex students who have a lot more needs. And our staff are doing an amazing job of just triaging and making sure that all students are covered. And I know at the high school for some time, we had a lot of unfilled classified positions, and some of our certified staff were helping with feeding protocols. So we had teachers coming down during their prep and helping students. So they've really come together and teamed up. But I think we're getting to a place where we're getting a little bit better in terms of our vacancies. It's just when staff are sick, they're not able to get a sub. So that's a challenge.
So do we need to also have on-site sub for aides? You know, hire, you know, a person for each building? And I know the high school would be a few, but
I know that not for special education per se, but I know Angela at Cornelius has done that. She's hired a classified person that can just, she finds something to do for her every day. And I don't know if other buildings are exploring that. I think the real issue is just finding applicants right now, and folks that can get on board.
Perfect. Now I think we're going to transition to Kim, and
okay.
I'll give you some questions at the end, but is there something you want to talk
Well, I just wanted to ask one question. I was trying to unmute there. I was having a hard time. So for the certified folks, are we getting applicants? Do we have open positions there?
Right now, I do not believe that we have any
Okay.
certified classroom teacher. We may have,
Okay.
yeah, I would say, but it hasn't been easy. I mean, I don't want to paint the picture, but yeah, right now, I think the only certified positions that we have open, besides, you know, we've also had these long-term substitute needs, right? As people go on family medical leave for 3 months at a time, those have been challenging to fill. So I don't want to shortchange that, but definitely our long-term sub jobs are still difficult to fill. But at this point, I do not believe, besides the building substitute positions, I don't think we have any open vacant certified positions right now. Oh, well, we've had a recent resignation. So, you know, besides the ones that are kind of coming up, like just happened maybe a week ago or something. So I'm corrected on that. We do have a vacancy that a temporary position that I believe we're posted right now in student services. But besides that, off the top of my head, I think we're doing well everywhere else.
Okay. I would just say, you know, I do some supervising of student teachers through Pacific University, and I'm actually supervising a couple of teacher of record student teachers. So they're working for the district as their student teaching, and so I you know, I don't know if we've ever had that, but
yeah, I meet with Pacific University once a month. So I'm pretty tuned in, and I think just probably you've noticed too, Mark, that, you know, it's that balance, right, between pushing them too quickly when maybe are they ready or are they not ready? And we certainly don't want to dissuade somebody or have somebody, I think, have an experience where it turns them off, right? So I thank you for that. That's a great point.
But I'll also say that December is a time for graduations for some universities. So we're already beginning to talk about some phone calls and some checking in to see who's graduating. And so that conversation is also being had. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Kim to just talk a little bit about some of the things that we're working on.
Okay. Thank you. So I thought it was important to give you all some context. Just, I know when we talk about workload, we also need the context of how many students are we serving, right? And I know the district has experienced a decline in enrollment over the last 2 years, and partly due to the pandemic. And we have yet to see whether or not all those students will come back. That impacts special education as well. You can see the numbers there. I won't read them off, but currently our census numbers, which is the number of students we report, is 844. There's certainly a little bit more that we serve, but those are the ones we claimed. And over time, you can see that that impacts our student caseloads. And I know Kate can relate to this because she was a case manager. If you looked at a couple of years ago, our caseloads are much higher. So currently we have at the K6 an average of 24.1 students for every licensed special educator, and at 712 an average of 24.9. And that doesn't include our behavior classrooms or our more complex classrooms like PALS. It's mostly just folks that would have a traditional caseload or a facilitator caseload, and it doesn't include SLPs as well. So it's pretty much anybody who's just a special ed teacher and has a caseload. So you can see that with workload, that with those numbers, it does reduce the amount of workload that folks have, and it puts their case management range in a little bit more doable place. So next slide. So these are the ways we've responded to workload. So we have some specialized program staff that have really low numbers this year. They have 3 to 5 students. And because we didn't reduce any staff members, we have the same amount of staff as we did pre-pandemic. So what we've done is take those specialized program staff members, and they've helped doing testing and some case management at the schools they're in. So Joseph Gale, Harvey Clark. So they've kind of helped other folks out during this time. We've consistently offered paperwork days, so that's something we budget in every year. That's not new. And then extended contract for specific circumstances or during census timeframe. So we offer extended contract during those really high volume times, people that have a lot of evaluations, early childhood meetings, and people can also request that extended time as well. In 2021, we had quite the numbers at the high school. So we added additional FTE then to address those larger numbers to keep their caseloads manageable at the high school level. So we haven't had any reduction in staffing levels since 1920 due to the pandemic and uncertainty of enrollment. I don't know if that's going to change given the enrollment. We'll have to look at our numbers and maintenance of effort and see where we'll be for next fall. And then we've reduced our professional development and we're holding on improvement initiatives, large curricular things. We're holding monthly staff meetings that are all virtual, and we're trying to do mini professional development sessions and follow up. And our secondary staff, they have at the middle and high school, they each have an additional prep in addition to their one contracted prep they get. So that adds additional time for them to be able to do testing and those kinds of things. Any questions about special ed?
Brad, yeah.
Kim, so the additional prep is for what again?
So what we've done is a combination. We call it classroom support time. So what we do is we say that is the time for you to connect with kids you might not see in classes, to connect with general ed teachers, to train your IA staff, to go in and observe kids. And then when they have high volume paperwork, like let's say they have a lot of meetings within the next month, they can use some of that time for prepping and planning and writing their IEPs and things like that, because those take more time.
Okay, thanks. And so because of the the numbers have gone down, the caseloads have gone down, but the staffing ratios have not gone down. So their caseloads are lower than they were in 2019-20.
Yeah, and what we see the issue we're having is with classified staff, because we have the same amount of staff, but there's illnesses and we can't fill those positions. So our certified staff are having to help cover, and that creates a scheduling issue. But yeah, and we'll continue to look. I'm hoping that with the, if COVID's waning, that we'll gain some students back we have some students online, and we have some students that left us.
All right, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Okay. So this year, our student success coaches are really, really busy. They have at least 20 teachers each of them have about 20 teachers that they're coaching, and they have a wait list currently. So they're in high demand, and it's no surprise because they're working really hard to make sure that teachers have what they need and can set their own goals around structures and routines and helping support students. We have an optional staff group, which we started last year during the pandemic, and we're reading the book Onward by Elena Aguilar, who is a coach. She's a coach nationally. And that really tackles the problem of educator stress and provides a framework for taking the burnout out of teaching. We're not going to keep adding those kinds of after school things. Those are voluntary, but we're going to kind of hold on the amount that we have for those. And then we have student and staff care coordination. So we have care coordinators, and they have helped with students' referrals to outside agencies, and also some family referrals. And also for staff, if staff are wondering, where can I find a provider? I'm really struggling. Our folks can connect them with community resources. The catch to that is right now our community resources are really, really taxed. So many of the resources that our students and staff would both access, they're working at like a 50% staffing rate. So we know that things like the Hawthorne Walk-In Center and some of the other agencies just don't have staffing right now. So that puts a pressure on our building staff, right? So that takes me to full counseling staff. We are so proud of our counselors. They are really working hard. With all the increased mental health and stress for students and staff, they're really helping try to support our community, and they're doing a great job. So that's been really helpful. And then the last thing, we have what's called the Employee Wellness Initiative. It's not technically a grant, but it comes through Oregon Education Association Trust, I think it is what it's called. And it provides us with $15,000, and we are allocating that proportionally to each building so they can enhance their staff rooms to support employee wellness. So they can support social and connection events for staff. So some of the things they're already doing, but then they can just kind of spruce up their staff rooms as well. Any questions about that?
I would just echo, I think just the hiring of the counseling, the student success coordinators, the care coordinators is really paying off in this with what's been going on in the pandemic and with our staff. So, yep. So that's kind of what we're working on. We have a meeting set up with our unions the first week back in January to continue some conversations about other things we can do to lower stress. But the first thing I would just do would be to open up any other kind of questions that you might have. And then the second one is like, do you have ideas about things that we haven't approached yet that you're wondering about and that we can begin to explore?
Hi, this is Valerie. I don't have a question. I just want to make a comment. I was happy to hear John say that, when he was talking about the literacy adoption, that, based on the people on that committee and what was going on this week, they opted to cancel the meeting that they were scheduled to have. I think that's something that, is good and something that we should consider doing more of. If people are burnt out, like, do we really need to have this meeting? Can we have it on Zoom? Would a memo work instead of a meeting? Things like that. So I was happy to hear that.
Dave, are we talking about how the parents can help the schools or help the teachers? Is there, I know it's additional work, but let's say at Harvey Clark, could the teachers have like a box where parents could come and pick up stuff and then pick it up and then deliver it another day, whether it's an art project, a science project? I know parents like to help, and I know that it's been a big void without their support.
I think most of those kind of systems buildings are working on. I'm looking down my hallway right now and I see the online teachers with a bunch of materials that they're about to get out to their parents and the rest. I think the bigger issue is really where are we going with volunteers in schools? And I think after the break, we began a conversation in cabinet today. We've had it with principals, but I think we want to begin to open up some volunteering opportunities. They help our teachers out. I mean, our parents do great volunteerism in our schools. We would need to follow the same rules that everybody else in the organization is following around. You got to be vaccinated. You got to stay masked up. We would run them through the same kind of volunteer process that we already have, and they'd follow through with making sure that people are hitting the marks. But we're looking at sometime after the break, beginning to open that up some more. Specifically, I think at the elementary level, it can be very helpful.
I have just a comment regarding just, I like the data in terms of, especially from the substitutes and all that information to kind of give us an idea what our baseline is currently. We get a lot of anecdotal information, but where are we from a data standpoint and making progress in terms of, so it's nice to be able to see this is where we are right now. These are our strategies. This is where we want to be. And so we can really quantify whether these strategies are working or not. So I would encourage us to continue using that data, especially from the substitutes and the IAs and the licensed staff, to determine if our strategies are working or not. And then if, in terms of progress, at least we can quantify whether we're making progress or not. And in terms of the adoption, I would encourage us to move forward with the adoption. especially some of the comments that we got from the staff.
Thank you.
And the one comment I might add is, I think that what I saw is that most buildings are doing, not online staff meetings, but memos maybe to the staff or is that right, Dave? Or
Yeah, most are trying to cut out the in-person.
Right.
Yeah.
So the only thing I would say about that is, because I think I've also seen that maybe at the upper grade levels, there's been maybe a little more in terms of student behaviors. And so I would hope that the principal, if I were, I would want people to feel comfortable coming to me, since we're not having a staff meeting, maybe to talk about that, to have an open door so that, staff members could come in and shut the door and talk about what's going on or what isn't going on, because those things rise for teachers. Those rise pretty quickly, daily. And so I understand not having, in-person staff. I get that, but I hope admin is amenable to, having an open door. So, and I think they are, but just so that staff can come in and problem solve things. So.
Yep. Agreed. And I know, having talked to both Juliana and Christy at the middle school, and then our high school staff, they're open to that. But again, the communication, when you're not seeing people in person, it is harder.
Yeah.
And so there is an issue there of like opening up those lines of communication.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's it, Kate. We have about 4 minutes till the next one, so that'll give everybody a quick break.
Okay, the work session will be closed at 6:26 and we'll resume at 6:30. Are we ready to go?
We just got to get our people back in, but you
Okay.
can, there's Val.
Okay.
And there's Brad. I think you were ready.
Okay, great. I will call the meeting to order December 13th, 2021 at 6:30 sharp. We'll do a roll call. Mark,
Present.
Brad,
I'm here.
Val,
Here.
Narcy is not available tonight. Sonia?
Here.
All right. The school board will hear public comment for unscheduled public appearances received through the designated form on the district website. Patrons who wanted to comment live via Zoom should have already registered as a participant, completed the form to provide their information, and indicated they were going to provide a live comment. If you're providing your comment live as a Zoom participant, please be sure to use your full name displayed in your Zoom profile. You can change that by clicking on the participants button, hover over your ID, click the rename, and type in the correct information, and then select OK. Comments will be read by district staff or delivered live via Zoom at the appropriate time on the agenda and will be limited to 3 minutes. Please stand for the pledge salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's have introductions of the audience and staff, please.
John O'Neill, Assistant Superintendent.
David Warner, Communications.
Eileen Clute, Business.
Kimberly Scherer, Director of Student Services.
Kevin Marine, Director of Human Resources.
Enrique Pignon, Technology Department.
Mark Hughes, Facilities.
Is that everyone?
And I think that's it tonight.
Okay, good. Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented tonight?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? This is a good group. All those in favor, Mark,
Yes.
Brad,
Yes.
Val,
Yes.
Sonia,
Yes.
and I'm a yes also. Correspondence and celebrations.
I'm going to work that into my comments today.
Okay. Student report. Sonia, please.
So this week and last week is kind of busy. So last week we had our first rallies in like 2 years, I think. We held 2, so then we split them up into 2 classes. So there was juniors and freshmen, and then sophomores and seniors. And during the rally, we recognized fall sports, and we had a lot of conference players this year, and we had some soccer awards given out. And then the sophomores and juniors won their individual rallies and will attend our rally this week. And I sent like a fall sports montage. And then I sent a Sparrow slide over, which I'll talk about later. But if you want to check out that montage, it just has like an overview of like all of the sports for fall. And then this week we have a rally, and basically it's like the winners of the last rally. And then LIA, which is Latinos in Action, are holding like a family night. And then currently we're looking for like a space for the community closet. And I know we're talking to the superintendent about that. But if anybody has any ideas about space or locations, just let me know. And then I also sent over the Winter Wishes donation. So if you want to donate to that, that would be great. And then Renaissance is doing something similar to Winter Wishes, which is called the Giving Tree, which is like another way to like give back to the community. And then this week we have a spirit week. So today's flannel and fuzzy socks, tomorrow's pajama day, Wednesday's ugly sweater, Thursday's like the rally class colors, and then Friday is winter weather. And then in the future, we're going to introduce our sparrow at an assembly on January 13th. His name is Erwin, and I shared like the slide with you guys, but basically he's got some like medical, financial issues that we want to help with, and students are able to help by volunteering in the community and then submitting those hours. And then for every hour that a student like volunteers, that's $10 that goes to the families to pay for medical expenses, which is really cool. So we're going to like adopt, which is like the wording, we're going to adopt him on January 13th. And then in terms of like how everyone's feeling, I think everyone's just pretty tired and exhausted and just mainly looking forward to break. And then I know like I know you sent out like the little like culture survey or something, the climate survey. And I noticed like quite a lot of people have agreed that there should be like more mask wearing. I have noticed that like people have been taking them off more often than in the beginning of the year. So, but I think that's pretty much it for any like concerns people have.
Thank you, Sonia. Any questions for Sonia?
I just appreciate all the work that the ASB is doing to kind of the rallies and splitting the number of students so we can keep the number of students in the gym low, but still be able to have the rally. So I appreciate all the work that you guys are doing around that.
I want to chime in real quick. Sonia, I love when I go to the sporting events, all the signs and posters that are being made. And at the last game, I even noticed at one of the JV games, there was a few students, I think from ASB, that brought in their own signs and were holding them and cheering. So I just thought that was great. It looks great. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be sure to let them know. They've been
Thanks.
like really hard to just make everything so much more like spirited and supportive.
Yep.
Yeah, it also just feels really welcoming. So it's really nice.
Terrific. Dave, calendar notes, recognition, superintendent report.
Yep.
Okay.
Let me start with just a notice. It looks like tomorrow morning could be dicey for us. Currently, I'm looking at the weather. We'll be up between 3 and 4 a.m. driving roads. And right now, it looks like the rain's going to stop and we're not going to have any more precipitation sometime after midnight. It doesn't seem to get cold enough until about 5 or 6 a.m. and just barely gets to 32. So we may escape tonight. They are talking about tomorrow night, Wednesday morning is another kind of dicey fare, but it's that time of year again, and we'll start getting up early and making sure that we know what's going on. So, but that's the first thing is it's that time of year for us again. We have a whole set of folks who drive, and Mark, who also gets up to check out the different school sites. And so there's a lot of folks who are involved with making sure our schools are ready. I thought I would just catch folks up on what's going on with our current pandemic. Here's our, this is for the state of Oregon. What I want you to notice is we are having a tick up here. We were decreasing pretty steadily. We're beginning to see some changes in that. This is our 7-day moving average, and right after you've got Thanksgiving right in here, and since Thanksgiving we saw an uptick. We are kind of seeing a slightly, I don't know what you would call it, a downtrend or what, but it's like we're still not where we want to be. We're definitely starting to see some leveling off. We're not really dropping as much as we would like to. This is kind of our Washington County. The total cases, you see kind of a tick up here. The cases per 100,000, I don't think it's as noticeable. We're still kind of maintaining. Pediatric, we're definitely, again, we're seeing kind of an increase. We were decreasing fairly steadily, but now we're either holding steady or seeing an increase. And you can see it again kind of in this, the end of this, this is the by age group, but we're again kind of seeing a slight uptick in our pediatric cases. And then I just want to talk about Omicron, about what we know about it right now. And the basic gist is it's still early, but the data that's come out over the last 2 weekends is basically the 2-dose Pfizer doesn't seem to be producing as many neutralizing antibodies as they might have liked with Omicron. With a booster, it goes from somewhere around 30 to 40% to about 70 to 80% effective. So the booster is still a positive thing to try and ward off Omicron. Omicron looks to be transmissible, and they're expecting it basically for Omicron to overtake Delta in both South Africa and Britain, where both of them are seeing kind of a rapid uptick of Omicron. Now, I don't think we have a case in Oregon yet, so this hasn't yet hit us. But I think what this is telling us is that because it is more transmissible, if it does get here, it has the opportunity to kind of overwhelm Delta, and it would become the major strain in time. We don't know yet whether Omicron leads to severe disease. The initial outlooks, Dr. Fauci said last weekend, I think it was, that it's looking like it doesn't, but we're still a couple of weeks away. The hospitalizations lag about 3 weeks from the initial uptick of this variant. So in the next couple of weeks, we're going to have a better understanding. Initial outlook is that it doesn't seem to be as serious. And in particular, for vaccinated folks, it definitely doesn't look to be as serious, but we'll get more definitive data coming up here. But that's kind of what I know about Omicron right now, and kind of where we're at with this. Questions on kind of the virus? I'll keep talking about this, especially over the next 2 or 3 weeks, because we'll probably get a better indication of what this variant is going to produce. Then I wanted to spend, this is the celebration, because of we just spent the last hour kind of talking about a lot of the challenges in running the organization. But we're just starting to get our initial results back from our interim assessments on language arts. And what we're excited to talk about is that we don't have all the results, and I'll bring those back to you in January when we get a better, a fuller picture of this. But the initial results are good. We're seeing kids who are having some really spectacular growth. We've got examples of kids being in urgent intervention and moving towards at grade level. And I think part of this can be explained. I mean, I have a couple examples here. This is a student who started in urgent intervention in September, and now in December, they are at benchmark, which is extraordinary. Hang on. Another student here. was at intervention level and is now at on watch, which typically on watch for us is at benchmark at this time of the year. Another student here was at it was at benchmark and now is above benchmark inside of the 3 months. At Harvey Clark, their second grade, 44% of the students showed significant growth. At the third grade, 68% saw significant growth. At the fourth grade, 77% of the students showed significant growth from September to December. Fern Hill, they don't have second grade data yet, but third grade was 47% and fourth grade was 60%. The percentages are varying between the buildings, but depending, I think it's fair to say most of the classes that we're seeing have at least like 50% of their students showing significant growth. So this is the celebration. We appreciate our teachers for their dedication and hard work this year. Yes, there's lots of challenges, but we're beginning to see some of the successes come out. And I just wanted to present that part of the story too, because of, I was over at Tom McCall walking through classes late last week and got to walk through classrooms they were doing, preparing for Socratic seminars. And again, I just saw the work and what the kids were doing, and it's so encouraging to see that happening. And yes, there's challenges going on, but I'm walking through these classrooms and I see kids learning, and it just, this is where kids need to be, is in school in front of their teachers. So that's kind of what I have for you today.
Thanks, Dave. That's great news. Just absolutely wonderful news, and big hats off to our teachers. You know, they're doing the very, very best as always. Unscheduled appearances. The board appreciates community members sharing information during public comments. Public comments should be submitted through the designated form and will be read by district staff or registered Zoom participants who indicated through the form they want to provide their comment live. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes, as is the protocol for board meetings. Public criticism or complaints about school district personnel are not allowed at this time. I think tonight we have 3, is that what you said, Kathy? A district staff member will be timing the comments, and they will, oh, that's going to be you, David. So you go ahead.
No problem. Yeah, we do have 3. I'll go ahead and read those. The first is from Janelle Mitchell. She says, I understand staff and teacher workloads are weighing heavy this year. I see other districts removing student instruction days to allow teachers additional planning time. I would ask that Forest Grove does not adopt this trend. Teachers, staff, parents, and students have had a rough year and a half. We have lost too much educational time due to school closures and virtual teaching. Our students cannot afford to lose any more in-person teaching. Again, I understand that teachers are struggling. I ask that teachers are supported in a way that does not remove any in-person time. Could teachers' meetings or other activities that take away from teaching and planning be put on hold to free up time? Could parent volunteers be allowed back in schools to assist with various in and out of classroom needs? However the workload is addressed, please do not take any more in-person instruction from the students in the Forest Grove district. Additionally, prior to the pandemic, it was never an option to close schools and move to virtual days or remove additional school days mid-year. I fear we are setting a precedent that when things get difficult, we can't just stop. What is this teaching our kids? Is it showing them that school isn't that valuable since it can come and go? In my work, asking for all staff to stop production or customer-facing interaction would never be considered. Problem solving and compromise is implemented. Our teachers and staff are intelligent and I imagine are excellent problem solvers. Let's find solutions to support staff that does not compromise the students' right to a quality in-person education. Thank you, Janelle Mitchell. Number 2, it's from Brandon Yon. Yeah, he says, we need law enforcement back in our schools ASAP. That's it. Number 3, this is from Beth Gustafson. Dear Board and Forest Grove community, we are writing once again regarding the school resource officer at the high school. We have been in contact with Superintendent Parker previous on this issue, have spoken up about this and kept us up to date on all things surrounding this matter. At this time, we are urgently requesting the board to step up and make a change to put the school resource officer back in the high school. Our schools and the board have a responsibility to protect our kids. With the current state of our world, the obvious mental effects this pandemic has had on many, and recent school shootings around our country, the SRO is needed to ensure the safety of our kids. As Superintendent Parker said in his recent email, the district has seen behavioral issues and our district is not immune to problems. The high school has fights almost daily and the teachers are left to break up fights. As we all know, we have a teacher shortage. So this is yet another thing we are putting on our teachers who are already stretched thin, not to mention they certainly do not have experience to handle these things like a trained officer does. The school added counselors do not appear to be helping reduce fights and situations that might arise. In addition, the most recent school shooting in Oxford, the school admin and counselors were not enough to stop the gunman, and the SRO and officers were key in stopping the gunman within 5 minutes, which is clear saved many more lives doing this quick respond to the school. Researching school shootings dating back to 2014, you can find case after case where a school resource officer was either key in deterring or stopping a shooter or violent situations where life-saving actions involved SROs. On top of ensuring safety in a horrible situation, the school resource officers do so much on a daily basis, and our high school is missing out on valuable relationships could be formed in situations daily that the SRO could be helpful in. Our schools are vulnerable and we are playing with fire with our kids' lives and well-being every day, from the consequences of the previous stance to remove our high school resource officer. You have eliminated the possibility of an SRO making a life-saving impact on lives, and this is a serious chance we should not be taking in our schools at this time. The recent email on this issue sent out asked that our district staff want to partner with parents. So we are asking you to partner with us now and ensure the safety of our children and put the school resource officer back in the high school. Thank you, Beth and Chad Gustafson. That's it.
Thank you very much, Dave. And I appreciate you reading those three. I think we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Hey,
The consent,
Kate,
yeah, go ahead.
I would just say a couple of things. One is that I am beginning to put together kind of a plan to take a look at the data of what's gone on with our SRO and kind of what's going on at schools, and then to bring that back towards the board. I'll probably seat a committee to kind of take a look at this and then be able to present that data back to you. So again, we're coming up on, halfway through the year. And so us being able to take a look at what's going on would be appropriate now. So that's kind of what I'm doing. And I'll get you some more details of that. I'm actually meeting tomorrow morning to kind of talk through that.
And you've been collecting data since September, right, Dave?
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Question, David, was that correct? A fight, when she mentioned a fight daily?
No, they're not happening daily, but certainly they are happening it's not normal. It's not, it would be at a rate that is higher than we've seen in the past. John, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, it's elevated student behaviors, extreme in terms of intensity. Let me just put it that way.
So in terms of data, probably, David, some not anecdotal kinds of things, but more solid kind of data about what's happening on a daily basis.
Yep.
And so that would be helpful.
Yep.
I think that, it looks like it's a trend through the state and through the nation right now, but it would be helpful for us to see what's happening in Forest Grove School District.
Absolutely. I would tell you that I don't think, I think it is better here. That's still at a rate that's unacceptable for us. So yeah, but I will kind of put together some more information and bring it back to the board.
Thank you.
Val? Go ahead, Val.
I'm also curious if we're talking about a fight every day at the high school or a fight every day at the middle school or at Tom McCall. What do the numbers look like in each building?
Yeah, it's not a fight every day. But today was our 20th expulsion, which is well above
Hi.
average. So we're watching it very closely, right, Dave?
So I guess is that all from the high school?
No.
No, because I mean an SRO is only in one building.
Right.
Just want to point that out.
Yeah, but I will bring, I mean, I like your, I mean, we were going to come with discipline and the calls because we are, the police do, when there are legal issues, we call the police and they come. And they've been, I can't say anything, but they've been great partners for us as things have emerged this year. But we'll bring that data, both the calls, the discipline, and try and explain kind of what's happening.
Okay, if there's no other questions for Dave, we'll move on. The consent agenda is made up of routine, non-controversial items to be voted on under one motion. Are there any items within the consent items a board member or the superintendent wishes to discuss separately? If not, do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
discussion? Mark,
Yes.
Brad,
Yes.
Val,
Yes.
and I'm a yes also. On the agenda next is the bond update. And Eileen is going to share that information with us.
Thank you, Kate. All right, so tonight's bond update, it's the remaining 2010 bond funds. It's pretty quick. There's not a lot of changes from last year. So overall, I'll pretty much just go over the changes for what's happened over the last 12 months. As far as resources for the bond, out of the $65.3 million bond, we ended up with $67.6 million, which is $2.2 million over that additional budget that we had. Most of that was in bond premiums and interest earnings. Since this time last year, we have increased our revenue by $5,496, and that's all interest on the remaining funds that we have. As far as expenditures by major project, we've spent $66.9 million of those resources from the last tab. That's $364,000 more than this time last year. And that $364,000 was incurred from the parking lot repairs that we did at Tom McCall and the high school, and then the boiler replacements at NAMS. So that is what we utilized deferred maintenance on through this last year. When we consider the $67 million in proceeds and the $66.9 million in expenditures, we have $691,000 left out of that original 2010 bond. I do anticipate that being fully spent by hopefully this time next year. Things that I wanted to point out on the last of it is we do have $63,000 set aside for cooling closets and resurface or kind of a maintenance on the tennis courts. And then we have parking lot repairs of $150,000. After we take those out, it leaves us just under $500,000 left. These are all of the things that we've been looking at as potential areas to utilize the funds. Go ahead, Brad.
What, can you tell me what a cooling closet is?
That's our data closets. And so we need to cool them.
Thanks.
Sorry, cooling the data closets. I guess I should have in there. So the projects that we're looking at, and some are larger than others, but we have the Neil Armstrong roof maintenance. Right now, we are at the end of our 10-year, or at the end of our roof warranty over at Neil Armstrong, and we are having a lot of leaks, which is causing other problems underneath once those leaks happen. And we've just been patching those as we go, but we're looking at more of a longer-term solution on that. We also have the Neil Armstrong chillers that need to be replaced, the boilers at the district office, elevator maintenance at the high school, and then just other major issues that might come up with our fire life safety systems. So those are all the risks and things that we're identifying as things that could potentially happen in the next couple of years. However, at this time, we're really going to start targeting that Neil Armstrong roof to try to come up with a longer term solution. And hopefully in January, we'll be bringing some more information to you on that project. And at this time, with less than $500,000 left in the bond, that is all I have for you guys on this.
Any questions for Eileen? No? Or unmuted? I can never figure this out. When they're up in the little boxes, I never know which way to press. All right, thanks, Eileen. Good information. We really utilized that, that bond so well. So now it's you, Mark. You're going to give us a little update.
Oh, and I am so excited to do this too. I've been looking forward to this one for about a month. So let me, and this is just a disclaimer, my first time I've ever put together a PowerPoint. And so that was fun learning how to do that. And now it's my first time sharing that PowerPoint. So I'm going to share my screen, I think, share, and then going to put this into motion. All right, everybody see this?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so I am excited to get this and present it to you. It's just a small peek at what we do here for Sodexo and what we do for the school district. And it's I wanted to share with you kind of what we've done this year. Okay, so our staff, we've been able to retain 100% of our staff through the COVID. We've got 9 employees that have been here over 20 years, 7 that have been over 10 years on top of that. They're experienced, well-trained, and very caring. The challenges are pretty much echoing what Kevin said earlier about the problems being able to hire. We've had applicants ready to start the next day and have backed out. And whether they get a job somewhere else or make more money, I don't know. But it's difficult. And a lot of our staff, due to the increase of minimum wage so rapidly, they're not making much more than that, the ones that have been here a long time. So it's a challenge to keep everybody happy right now. On my way to dinner tonight, you can see what Panda Express is offering up $21 an hour and bonuses. So it is a challenge. And here are some of our staff. We got Rosalba, Fernando, Juan. I've got Rosa, and a couple others that they're family. They get into these buildings, and I heard that when Angela left Dilly, her custodian went with her over to Cornelius. This is how tight of a knit these guys bond. Juan here in particular, I've watched him coming out at closing time, and he is just exhausted from being spread so thin right now. And you'll see as we go through here how we've added quite a bit of workload to them. And we could easily put 10 more people on right now. Here we got some summer cleaning that we do. And the result, this picture shows two things. The nice shine on the floor I'm pretty happy about, but it also lets the mice into the room. So we had to stop that. Some of the added duties that the custodians do is setting up for events. This was the graduation last year, and we set up for all sorts of events and pretty much work 7 days a week. And this is why. I don't have any grandkids, but I thought that little guy was the cutest thing when I saw it. I had to take a picture. So a part of my job that Billy didn't tell me about was the 24/7 emergency response that I get to do. And so my phone's always on. And, like Dave wanting to get up early and go see the roads, at least it's only a few times a year. But we've had some pipes break and storm damage and fires in the dugouts and, just things that we've had to deal with. And so here's a few of the pictures along the way that I get to help deal with. There's a lot of firewood out of that tree. And so these are usually on a weekend, it seems. This one, I got a call on a Sunday. I went down, and this Chris Woodford's the fire chief or fire inspector, and him and I looked at it for a while to try and figure out how it happened. Best we could figure was there was a bottle rocket that landed right in this, up against the bottom here, and caught the inside of the wall on fire because the fire burned from the inside out. So that was kind of interesting. 24 hours later, we've got it repaired and painted. And then on a Friday night, overnight Friday morning, there was a little bit of graffiti. So our custodian went over and painted over it. But if you notice over here on the left, it says don't paint over. This was discovered Saturday morning. So because he didn't write please, we went ahead and covered it up just a few hours later. Late night gas repairs. This guy on the side has basically a stethoscope. He listens for underground leaks. And the Sodexo management manages the maintenance or the utilities. And I get an email saying we're using a lot of water at Joseph Gale. So we go over there, and I hired these guys. They showed up a few hours later. We discovered a leak right where this track hole is and got that taken care of. We had the same problem at the high school. We were able to find that leak ourselves, but that was within a month of each other. It was really interesting. So some of the projects that I get to manage, see, I've had my own construction company for 30 years. So when people hire me to do things, I've got a team behind me that help make it happen. So we're replacing sidewalks that were damaged, adding sidewalks for social distancing, adding more sidewalks to get the kids from the playgrounds to their outdoor units without getting their feet muddy, putting in playgrounds that Nike donated to us. This was at Fern Hill. Converted that batting cage at the high school to the food pantry plus athletic storage, and painted it to mimic the Kaczynski Center. It looks pretty good. If you remember the old counseling office and this fella right here that's walking in that room, that is now a hallway that leads to 5 more counseling offices. So wow. we did quite a bit of work here, and it's one of the things that I really enjoyed doing. Giving Dilly some new flooring, and the desk was all scarred up, so I went in there one weekend and put the barn boards on there. Mariella loves it. Painted Cal to the maroon and gold, so it looked like the high school, adding some operating windows. Excuse me. Did a lot of work at the district office, cleaning up in general, patching the foundation. there was a catch basin that the water would be pumped out of the basement, you know, as a sump pump. It would drain to the surface and then go down to the next catch basin. So this time of year, it creates an ice hazard. So we cut up a pathway to that catch basin and installed a pipe underground, and then striped the whole thing after we got it all cleaned up. As mentioned earlier, the new bus loop at Tom McCall, boilers at Neil Armstrong. I took a picture of these computers because when you hear controls and DDC and all that, they're all run by the computers. Everything is in this district. It's very interesting. Muddy playground, add a curb, divert the water. Damaged playgrounds, we repaired them all over the district. Given Gales Creek oiled the back lot so the little gravel doesn't come up anymore. And then we're going to do a makeover, basically a facelift in the cafeteria here this beginning next week. And the rest of these tables are going to be distributed throughout the district, which adds to the workload of the custodians. So we're really trying to hire more people. We did hire one person today. So things are looking a little bit better. Our COVID response and management of supplies has been one of the things that we paid good attention to. When everyone else was out of toilet paper, we weren't. Randy and I assembled 85 picnic tables and spread them out through the district. Randy does a lot of good work with the custodians. He's their manager, and he's a blessing to have. Adding screens for ventilation. And here's our stockpile of goods that we have a continuing rotation of in the warehouse. Training of the staff on cleaning techniques to keep our kids healthy. And we moved a mountain of furniture for hybrid last year and then brought it all back for this school year. We assisted in placing signage for the social distancing. So that's just a small amount of what we do. I just wanted everyone to see, you know, like Billy would like to tell us, we're like the little swan that's swimming across the pond, but it's the little feet running underneath. That's what I wanted you to see, was the little feet running underneath. So with that, I'll quit sharing my screen. Maybe.
Oh, thank you, Mark. That was really interesting. Any questions for Mark? Well, I'm out at Gales Creek, and what you did out at Gales Creek was great. The pavement out back and the track, that's so good for the kids to be able to, you know, move around that track, and the swings. Before it was like 4 feet down underneath the swing.
Yeah.
You know, so I really appreciate, you know, all the work that you and your team do, and I know the board feels the same way. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, Mark, this is Valerie. I just
Valerie.
want to say, great job on your very first ever PowerPoint presentation. I liked all the pictures a lot, and I thought you did a great job. Also, I really appreciate and like how you gave a shout out to your guys' crew. I mean, without you guys, we couldn't be doing our day to day. So
Yeah.
I personally know Juan, and he's always working his tail off, and it's great. I mean, you have a great crew, and your presentation was good. So thanks for all the info.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Dave, you're muted, Dave.
Say a couple of, I was just going to follow up with, again, having worked in 3 different districts and having worked with really great custodial and maintenance crews, I can tell you that this crew is excellent. When we need things, they collaborate with us. Even it's like moving that mountain of furniture out of the classroom so we could run hybrid, and then telling them now we need it all back in the classrooms, and just getting it done. And so I just want to say thank you. I really appreciate the collaboration, and you guys, even when we bring you really tough things, you just make it happen. And so we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll say one more thing is the custodian out at Gales Creek, even before Joyce and I arrive on Thursday, he always turns on the Christmas lights. So
Yeah.
right down to the tiny details. So it's just wonderful. And that shows the community and connectedness. Huh?
You and Joyce at Gales Creek?
Yeah, we got the library open for the children again.
Oh,
And the kids at the school decorated the tree. So it's just great. It's just really wonderful. Okay, again, thanks a lot, Mark. That was really informative.
Good.
Let's see where we're at now. Okay, Eileen, you're going to be talking about cyber insurance.
Yes. So Enrique is here also with me. He's going to help present a couple of the slides and help navigate this with me. But I'll go ahead and start. And part of this is coming up because in the spring, we had conversations back in May and June about our fidelity insurance. So our fraud coverage internally. And questions came up about our cyber insurance and what are we doing and how are we covered with cyber insurance? And at the same time, PACE was going out to bid and implementing a new insurance plan for us with different levels of insurance. So we have been working over the last few months to look at our insurance coverage and look at securing alternative coverage. And I just wanted to make sure that we were coming back around with you to kind of close the circle and let you guys know where we're at with that. Cyber insurance coverage is it's insurance coverage that helps protect the district from any fallout from cyber attacks or hacking threats. It helps the district in recovering costs from something that after it happens. So if an event happens, then it helps with the after effect. It does not prevent any attack or prevent anything from happening to the district. We are still responsible to put measures in place to help protect us and to help prevent these from happening. However, the insurance helps support anything in the event it does happen.
And just to kind of go over some of the different attacks and risks that basically all organizations have to deal with. But some of them you're probably familiar with, some of the language malwares, any kind of malicious software that might be installed on a computer system. Ransomware is where you have data maybe that is being encrypted or stolen and will only be returned after a payment is made. Funds transfer fraud, where maybe somebody pretends to be a certain vendor and tries to get the district to transfer funds into a different account. Phishing is like an email scam where someone may get an email asking for information for data. Spoofing is similar in a sense that it can be someone pretending to be a website, pretending to be another person, and trying to get an individual to basically provide information or data. Password attacks or DDoS attacks, these are more on the back end, kind of on the network side of trying to overwhelm a network to bring it down. Some of the risks involved are the loss of data, both staff and student data, which can include personal and health information, the loss or encryption of data, such as financial data, damage to hardware, and also just the disruption of the ability to deliver instruction. Yeah, Brad, I think, did you raise your hand?
yeah, Enrique, have we had any of these things happen up to this point?
The district specifically, none that I'm aware of. Eileen, I don't know if there's anything you would add from the business side.
Not that I'm aware of, but we do get, I mean, we do get emails constantly about, hey, I'm, Dave Parker, I want to change my direct deposit. Hey, I want to change my mailing address. I want to, so internally, at least on my side, we're watching this and we're trying to double check and verify every email that comes through, make phone calls to employees to verify, changes and stuff. So we're constantly watching it. So we've been lucky. We haven't had anything that's happened, but there's a lot of risk here.
Thanks.
Okay. A couple of really close examples that we have that's happened. All three of these events have been in the last 2 years, and they have all three been ransomware attacks. And they've been greater than $500,000 impact. So it's hit their systems. It's really impacted. We have Rogue Community College, Centennial School District, and then Tillamook County. So there is risk. It is happening around us. And it's a pretty large financial impact. In 2019, there were 113 state and municipal governments, 764 healthcare providers, 89 universities, and colleges and school districts within the US that had ransomware attacks. So it's becoming more and more prevalent. You're seeing a lot more of it happening. In an article from the FBI, it talks about school districts are quietly becoming the leading target of ransomware attacks. We have a lot of high profile attacks. So the Colonial Pipeline and then the JBS Foods, those pay out millions or lots of dollars, but school attacks are they're not millions and millions of dollars, but they're happening more and more frequently. And as we've been transitioning to distance learning and back and forth and changing systems and changing the way we do things, we're just more vulnerable to that.
And to kind of look at some of the best practices that the district follows to help kind of mitigate threats, because as Eileen mentioned before, cybersecurity threats are ongoing. There is never going to be an end to them, but what we can do is put ourselves in a position to protect ourselves and to lessen the impact should anything happen. Some of those best practices that we follow are doing regular backups of any critical systems, applying multi-factor authentication to district accounts. This is where someone gets a code sent to a second device to further authenticate who they are. The principle of least privilege. What this is basically only providing a user the amount of control that they need on their system to do their job and nothing beyond that. What this boils down to is basically like removing full local administrative rights of someone's control over their laptop or their desktop, because they don't need that just to perform their daily duties. Firewalls and filters. So these are things maybe on the edge of the network to prevent any threat from entering the internal network, and filters to make sure that staff are not visiting any malicious websites. And as we talked about earlier, like with phishing, we have certain filters and rules that are in place that constantly are scanning email, looking for things that follow a certain pattern that might be a phishing attempt, to try to block those and prevent it from ever reaching the user's inbox. Antivirus and any malware software running on all our systems, just to detect if anything happens to exist on the system or prevent it ever from getting downloaded. Software and system updates, so like your Microsoft, your Apple, our operating system vendors, any other software that we run on any of our servers, these vendors provide security updates, so we're constantly applying those updates to those systems to make sure that we're always on top of any changes. Control the physical access. So this is, physical access into the building, into closets that might have sensitive content or information, and just user education. One of the weakest points any organization is working with is the end user, because that is a place where someone can try to enter into our system and network, such as through an email or through a website that someone visits. So we're constantly doing as much as possible user education. So at the start of the year, all staff members have to do a cybersecurity training session that they have to complete. Just this past month or two, we sent out another reminder because of a cybersecurity awareness month to staff about making sure they're always paying attention to emails that they receive, websites that they visit, always making sure to double check any file that they may try to download or access, because in the end, they are one of our most important elements to prevent any threat from affecting the district.
So this is a section out of a letter we got from PACE last spring. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but really it just talks about the increasing volume of cyber attacks is impacting our cost and our ability to get cyber insurance. This year, PACE changed, and PACE and AIG changed some components within our insurance plan. And they're really talking about it's going to get harder and harder to get that insurance. The insurance is going to get more and more expensive, and potentially even not even being able to have insurance in the future. So they're working on it. They're looking at options that they can have provide districts, but at the same time, they're also recommending districts to look for alternative options for cyber insurance. Just a quick overview of a few of the things that are in our current insurance plan for cyber insurance. This is a comparison of last fiscal year or last school year to this school year in our insurance plans. We have $1 million of insurance coverage for any cyber attacks or cyber things, events that happen. The PACE Trust as a whole, there's 332 members between colleges, universities, school districts in that PACE Trust. There's a $5 million aggregate max. So if districts, if there's 10, 15 attacks across our state and across the PACE Trust in a year, and we expire and utilize all of that 5 million, and then we're that last one, we would then have no coverage. So there's that aggregate limit. The deductible went from $5,000 last year to $25,000 this year. So they increased that deductible. Plus, now because of just the quantity of ransomware attacks that are happening, there was not a sublimit last year, and now we have a $200,000 sublimit. And if you noted those other three examples from locally from our state that happened, those were all 3 ransomware attacks. And so with a $200,000 limit, and those were costing over $500,000 each, it doesn't cover very much. It really doesn't cover very much. The district would be obligated for the first 25,000, and then our PACE Trust would cover the next 75,000, and then AIG, the insurance carrier, would cover that 100,000. So we would really only get $175,000 worth of coverage if something were to happen with maintaining with the PACE AIG insurance. Historically, they have not required anything to maintain cyber insurance coverage, and now they are requiring us to have 3 things in order to keep that cyber insurance. Those 3 things are that we have to do backups of our systems daily. We have to not allow general users to have administrative rights on devices. And then we have to require passwords to expire and change annually. So we do have those in place, and we have insurance this year. If we did not have any one of these 3 in place July 1st, then we would not have been able to have cyber insurance coverage for this current calendar year. Because of the $200,000 supplement in ransomware and the PACE aggregate max, combined with PACE's recommendation to really look for alternative insurance coverage, and just the overall feeling from PACE that it's going to be harder to get insurance coverage if they're even going to be able to provide us insurance coverage in the future, we've gone ahead and secured additional insurance coverage, cyber insurance coverage outside of the PACE Trust to layer on top of this plan. So in case there is something that happens to the district. So again, this is the 21, this is current year's PACE AIG insurance coverage that I just went over. And then now we have a secondary plan. It's with Cowbell. It gives us $1 million of dedicated coverage to the district. So there's no overall PACE aggregate coverage. It's $1 million to Forest Grove School District. It does have a $50,000 deductible, which we could layer on the PACE one, so it would reduce that deductible. And it has a $500,000 ransomware sublimit. So it increases that sublimit up from $200,000 to $500,000 and potentially allows us to layer them. And then if we can get just the district-wide multi-factor authentication done district-wide, we have it in a lot of places. But once we're able to expand that fully, then that would take out that ransomware sublimit, and we would have that full $1 million dedicated policy that would cover that ransomware. So I just wanted to let you guys know that we have been doing a lot of research. We've been working with our insurance carriers, working with Alicia with WSC on quoting out insurance policies. And this is really the best one that we could find to provide us that additional layer of protection. So that is all I have. If you guys have any questions for Enrique or I.
Eileen, go ahead. No. The district-wide, in terms of that district-wide piece, what part of the district have we already implemented that part of that piece?
So for the multi-factor authentication, it's already implemented district-wide for all staff. What we're really looking at is working with our partners at the ESD on any external systems or systems that maybe they are hosting for us, that we want to just make sure that the multi-factor authentication is extending to those systems as well. So that is still work we're doing to kind of coordinate with them, but that's mainly what it's involving.
So when will that happen?
That should be completed here this year. Again, it's a process ongoing, again, because we're working in partnership with them, and they not only host systems for us, but they also do so for other districts. So sometimes changes that they put in place aren't unique to us and will impact other partners. So, but right now it is something that we're hoping to have fully implemented prior to the end of the year.
Thanks, Enrique.
Okay. If there's no other questions, thank you both for that was really informative. And there's so many things that everybody's doing, you know, from just COVID and getting all our supplies in to dealing with ransom. I mean, it's just amazing. People wouldn't realize how many facets go into keeping this school district going. So thank you both very much.
Thank you, Kate.
The next item is, we have 2 action items, and we're going to review, this is a second reading for the policy ACB, Every Student Belongs, and
I'll take that one, Kate.
oh, okay.
So yeah, several weeks ago, we put this policy in front of you. I haven't received any questions on it, but I can answer any questions that you might have now. Again, the changes were needed because of some changes in the state law, but the basics of this hasn't changed much. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay. I will make a motion to approve the policy ACB, Every Student Belongs, as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Discussion? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Valerie?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And I'm a yes also. The next action item is the 2022-23 budget process calendar amendment, and Eileen is going to present that.
Thank you. So we have the budget calendar amendment for 2022-2023. And this amendment is due to the budget committee vacancies. We posted those back in October. We have 2 vacancies open and a alternative position. The applications were due by November 30th, and we did not receive any applications. So at this time, we're looking to extend the application period and change. The budget calendar is in the packet, and it has in red 2 dates that we're proposing to change. January 17th through the 21st would become the interviews of the budget committee applicants. And then January 24th would become appointing the budget committee members. This time around, we are hoping to send the notice over to the News Times this week. It'll get published next week. And then we're going to be working with David Warner and other partners to be able to get the word out to as many community groups and schools that we can get that out to. So we're really looking for applicants for our budget committee.
Okay, any questions for Eileen? Okay, I will also make a motion. I move to approve the amended 2022-23 budget development calendar as proposed by Eileen. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All right, Brad,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Val,
Yes.
and I'm a yes also. The motion passes. We'll move on now to the future action items, and this is a discussion about board meetings to do it virtually or in person. So I'm open for thoughts from the board members. Well, I've written up a whole bunch.
But do you want thoughts about when we're talking about this, or what we think about it currently?
Well, you know what, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a statement that I'm just going to remind people. I think sometimes people think that they don't really understand the board meetings. So the board meetings are meetings of the board to conduct district business of the board. It is not a meeting with the public. The board's responsibilities include establishing policies and budgets. The board also sets goals and evaluates the progress towards those goals, along with hiring and evaluating the superintendent. As a board, we welcome comments from the public, but board meetings are to do board business. So I just wanted people to understand that piece, because I think sometimes people don't really, I don't think they always understand what our role is, and it's fairly limited what we can and cannot do. But I was thinking of, and I'm open for discussion about, the pros and cons of meeting virtually or in person.
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts. I mean, I've just noticed that in the last year and a half, I feel that we have had more participation from the community members being online than we ever did in person. And I think that's a good thing. By having it online, everyone and anyone who wants to can participate and listen in to a board meeting. When we were having them in person, there's some barriers that restrict everybody from being able to participate. So I think having them online is a good thing in a lot of ways. Yeah, that's just my thought on it. Oh, and one more thing, that there's nothing that we aren't doing online that we do in person. The same things are happening. So we're not missing anything by having this online. We're actually gaining access to everybody. So that's just my thought.
Thank you, Val. Mark, did you have any thoughts, comments?
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with what you said, and also with what Val has said. We've of course lately had topics that a large number of community members are very interested in, with what's gone on with the virus, right? And so we've gotten a lot of comments, and we've been able to do public comment, not in person, but by Zoom, where you can see people. And I think that's been a positive of having the meetings online.
Thank you. Brad, did you have anything you wanted to share?
Yeah, I would agree with the comments made previous to me. The only thing that I would say would be eventually we should probably set a date for when we want to come back in person. But as far as I'm concerned, I've been happy with the way the meetings have been run and the input we've gotten, and the way things have gone. I do know that there are a lot of school board meetings around the state that have been canceled because of disruptions and other things that have gone on because of just the state of the union. So I think we've got a lot of work done, and I think that the way we've done business up to this point have gone well. And I do look forward to the time when we can get back to meet together. So that would be my comment.
Thank you. Narcy couldn't be with us, but she emailed me. She said, my points to continue the board meetings virtually. The justifications are the new variant we don't know enough about, and so there's a health issue. We capture a bigger audience to participate. It's equitable for parents who don't always have transportation to get into in-person board meetings. And we don't need to worry about assuring all are vaccinated who attend in person. So, I mean, those are some of the comments from Narcy, and she apologizes for not being with us tonight. There was an article in the News Times, which we all had looked at, but I'm just going to sort of give you some of my comments. We still can conduct the board business, and also people can still share their ideas. The presentations by the staff, communication with the unions and student groups, we can do it virtually or in person. And we've continued to do that all year. Parents have more accessibility. Parents do not need to drive nor obtain childcare. Sometimes being in a public forum is scary for people. So public speaking is easier for some in their own homes. Environmental benefits, fewer people driving to meetings, less need to heat or cool buildings at night. The other thing that I think is really important, more accessibility for people with disabilities. I think that's important, that they can go online. Individuals can select and attend to portions of the agenda meeting that they're concerned about and interested in. And I think one of the concerns is that was in this article that was in the News Times is that the technology gap for some families. And, there are ways that we could address so more people could participate. The one thing that I've always enjoyed is, talking with the staff and the other board members in person and the community. I mean, I miss that engagement. Go ahead, Fred.
I was just thinking, listen to your comments, Kate. I'm just thinking that maybe there's a lesson learned here. Maybe there's a hybrid for moving forward at some point where we move to in-person board meetings, but we also include all those other pieces that make sense for people with disabilities, people who have access issues, that we combine both in person with the Zoom meetings where people can access our meetings in other ways. So I just want to make that comment that I think there is a lesson learned.
Yeah, and I think that I remember a couple board conference meetings, conferences that we went in Portland, and I think it was in Springfield that they were using YouTube already to communicate to their board so that they could have access to it. So, I think that there's a way to do both. And I just think that for me personally, I don't really want to set up a day or a time to. I want to see what's coming next with this variant. And I'm hoping that I hope that we're on the downslide of these variants. That's my prayer and hope for everyone. But I do think that we've very effectively, the staff and the board have accomplished their business, and we've had an opportunity to hear from more community members than in the past, and also it gives the opportunity, I think, that I didn't mention, but teachers can also listen in to see what are we talking about, and I think information is important for people. So those are my only comments.
I think Val has her hand up.
Oh, Val, go ahead.
I just wanted to add in that I think what Brad is saying is a great point, that hopefully we can do a combination of an in-person meeting and offer it online as well. I think another benefit from what we're doing right now is that our teachers are not the only ones that are overworked. I feel like everybody is overworked. Our admin, the parents, everybody is. And so this is a way for us to have these meetings and still let everybody participate, but not be stuck at a building till 8 or 9 o'clock at night. It just takes one more thing off of their plates, off the cabinet's plate and the parents' plate.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you.
That is a great point. I never even thought about that. That is a great point.
Yeah.
Wait, Brad, can you just say it one more time?
I said,
Wow, that was a great point.
that's as much as you're going to get from me.
Thanks.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of good ideas and thoughts about this. I mean, we really have learned a lot this last year and a half, almost 2 years. If there's no more comments on this, I'm going to move on to review the future board items that are in our packet. There's also an enrollment report and there's also a financial report. Are there any questions? Okay, I am going to adjourn the meeting at 7:45 and thank everyone's participation, and the presentations were informative and really good. So I really appreciate that. Have a good night.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Yep.
Good night.